It's a pretty intensive process, time-consuming, takes a lot of time to do a campus. We will need to make board reports before October of next year, of October of 26. So in the spring, you'll see individual campus safety audit reports coming to you, just to give you a heads up on that. School Safety Center has released their EOM reviews every year. We're required to send, always required to send our basic plan, our basic emergency operation manual to the School Safety Center, and then they usually pick an additional requirement to send. Last year it was our cybersecurity amendment or appendix, and this year it's our active threat assessment appendix. Usually they have updates, and it doesn't take a lot, but they've pretty much revamped both due to requirements that Governor Abbott has set forth. So we're working on those. I started working on those this week. The idea that we can present those at the Safety Security Committee meeting in July. And then at the same time, through Sentinel, which is the online security application that we've been using now for a couple of years, but they've kind of turned the notch up on that. We'll be uploading all that material, and all the local agencies and state agencies will be able to have access to information that's in there in the event there are issues. So we'll get those done. Those will be due around September, and then usually I'll give a report back to you in December. The past couple of years, we haven't had any findings, but we have in the past, and it's usually, hey, you need to fix this to make it fit our requirement. Summer Safety and Security Committee meeting, you've already heard me talk about it once or twice. That'll be July 23rd, 4 p.m. in the boardroom. Just so you know, there is a requirement for 2 board members to attend those meetings. The president is required to be there if they can be there. And then we need another board member to be there. It doesn't have to be assigned. If you just want to let me know, I know Mr. Broussard did it for a long time. But if y'all would let me know, I'll try to get that information out. If you want to switch it out, whatever works best for y'all. But it sure helps to have y'all at those meetings. We try to keep them to about an hour. We usually have a good representation from all the local law enforcement and fire departments from around the area. So it's good information for you. It's a lot of the same information that you already hear in the board meetings, but it's a little bit more detailed and a little bit different perspective from the emergency responders. That is July 23rd at 4 p.m. in the boardroom. That's the tentative schedule. Sometimes we have to change it because we can't get everybody in the room at the same time. So sometimes it changes depending on who we can get here and who we can't get here. So the last thing that I have is, we had a door breaching training over in F-Wing before it started getting torn down. So I know Chief had a lot of fun and would love to tell you all about it. So, Chief, you have anything to talk about your destruction?
Yeah, after the second day, everybody wants to know when we're going to pass another bond so we can go destroy another building. When you actually have an actual structure where you can do good training, live fire and stuff, it's like, kids in a candy store. Mr. Kenny, some of the admin walked through after the fact, and they can tell you there was some damage done in there.
It was a mess.
I heard y'all didn't break any glass.
A little bit.
I don't think there was any glass left.
But anyway, we appreciate it. It's actual good training instead of having some makeshift, building that's not actual, structure or something. So it was really good training. And we appreciate the board, Mr. Galloway, Mr. Kenny, for letting us do some work and good training inside the building.
I thought the most impressive was the hole in the cinder block wall. I found out it's a viable way to breach a room.
And I sent my sister, she was the first door we did first entry. So we destroyed her door. So I sent her a picture of it. I told her I promise we'll replace your door when we're.
And then the last thing I have, you have your monthly report from Chief in your folder. If you have any questions over that, it'll be easier to answer. If not, that's all that I have, unless you have any other questions.
Do I have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Follow up on the break-in.
I'm sorry?
I want to say the follow-up on the break-in, we identified about $2,000 worth of damage.
We've got one identified, we've got 2 warrants, and me and Lieutenant Dvorak went to a location today to look for him, but suppose he's out of town somewhere. So He's been arrested up in Montgomery County. He's wanted out of Galveston County, so, but we do have some warrants out for him.
Were they students of ours?
One of them graduated in December. The other two, we don't know who they are. I don't think, I saw the administrators, different principals, different schools, and nobody recognized the other two, so once we find the person that we got warrants on, it's gonna be up to him to get the other two identified.
All right, our instructional report.
All right, a couple of things for you tonight. The first one, in your folder, is paper clipped. It's the school supplies list. See that? Yeah, you have a lot of information in your folder tonight. There you go, Mr. Custom. Paper clipped. If you want to look at that, what we tried to do years ago, we have several major players in our community that try to provide school supplies list, and so their request at that time, many years ago, was to consolidate as much as we can so that they can buy supplies and have supplies for all of our kids, not just for kids at certain campuses. Because that's how they felt they needed to do, because they may be in Missouri, but they may buy out of Walmart in West Columbia, right? And so they were having a hard time at that time of, we would say we want a package of this, but it comes in a package of 5 times that much. And so we're doing the best we can over the years, and so we asked the campuses to consolidate as much as possible. So on page 1, on the first page, you see the things that are the same across the district. And then if there is any special requests, you'll see those on the second page. All right. So those would be if a campus is asking for something specific in addition to.
Did this go home with the kids in their?
No, this hasn't gone home. I don't even think we've released it yet, have we? Right, we just wanted to show y'all what we'll do is we'll post it, we'll release it to the local community stores and so forth. Yep. Several churches that do major supply drives and so forth, we'll make sure that they get those things. Okay. All right, second thing for you, you have a stapled sheet in your yellow folder. We're going to show you, we have received our preliminary STAR and EOC scores for 2025. And so we've put that into the information that you see, and that's it, Janet, right there. Colorful sheet. So if you look at that, this is the same sheet you see. If you look to the far left column, you'll see starting at the top is our EOCs, end of course exams at the high school, English 2, English 1, Biology, US History, Algebra 1. Then going down, you'll see grades 3 through 8. We start at the top with 8th grade reading, 8th grade math, 8th grade Algebra 1, so forth down. And then all the way down to the bottom is 3rd grade math, and then we show you the score for the district and for each elementary. Working our way across, you can see the first column's going down is goal 1. That is the goal that the campus set. Again, A, M, and masters. That's approaches, meets, and then masters is what A, M, and the MSTR stand for. The release 1 was the score, so you can compare what the goal was to the release test actual scores. Then the second round, you can see the goals that the campus has set. You can see the release of what the results were like. Then in green, those were actual scores that from 2022. And then you can see there's a STAR redesign that was put in. And so some of the testing changed and is still changing in the process of. Then you see the 2023 score, the 2024 score. And then you see the next thing is the final goal that the campus had for this year. And then to the right to that, you see STAR 2025. Those are the preliminary scores for each campus grade level for the district. And then to the far right is what we have for state averages. so that you can compare us to the state as far as you can concern. So at the end of the day, you're looking at the last two columns to the far right. Star of 2025 is our scores. Again, the A is for approaches, the M is for masters. Meets. MSTR is for masters. And then the same thing for the state 2025, and that's their averages.
So approaches means,
They passed. Approaches is passed. Meets is met grade level. Right, and then masters is they top 95%, if you want to call it that.
so they approach, they pass,
Correct.
but they don't meet the grade level.
They don't meet the grade level standard, correct.
So that means they pass with a low score. Is that correct? So what are your concerns in looking at this report?
So if you want to start at the bottom up, third grade math, you can see that approaches. So if you want to go for the passing rate, third grade math, you can see the district's at a 75, the state's at a 70. We haven't always been able to say that. Okay. You move up to third grade reading, you can see approaches is at a 79, the state's at a 78, or above the state. And haven't always been able to say that. Fourth grade math, approaches at a 72, the state's at a 68. Haven't always been able to say that. Fourth grade reading, we're at an 80, approaches the state's at an 81. We're one percentage point below. If you look at several years past, fourth grade has always been a huge dip. And so when you look at, you have to take third grade, fourth grade, you have to say major kudos because you just reversed a trend. A long-standing trend. So if you move up to fifth grade, so you get fifth grade science, you can say fifth grade science was at a 59, state's at a 64. We would like to be better than that, but we're not far off. If you look at fifth grade math, we're at a 65 this year across the district, state's at a 73. We've reversed the trend. Fifth grade math for the last several years has been our shining point. This year it's not. Now, if you look at fifth grade math, you can see this year they scored a 65 this year. If you go over to the green column, the last green column, star 2024, and you go to fourth grade math, you can see that they were at a 66 last year and they're at a 65 this year. So what can you compare that to? Well, there was a grade level of growth. They stayed the same. So to score the same, you have to grow a grade level. I mean, you have to grow a year, if that makes sense. We just didn't grow them more than a year of that we've been able to do in fifth grade over the last several years. If you go to fifth grade reading, you can say fifth grade reading was a 74, the state's at a 77. If you move up into sixth grade math is a 69. In CBISD, the state was at a 72. Fifth grade reading, we're at a 71, the state is at a 75. Seventh grade math, you can see we're at a 63, the state was at a 52. Seventh grade reading, we're at a 71, the state's at a 74. Eighth grade social studies, we're at a 53, the state's at a 55. Eighth grade science, we're at a 60, the state's at a 72. Algebra 1, eighth grade, 100. The algebra is always tough because, you know, how you compare it, right? Algebra 1's algebra 1. And so that's always tough. And generally, our eighth grade algebra 1 is at 100. Algebra 1 at the high school, you can see 37. The state's at a 69. So when you do that, yes, algebra 1's been an issue, and it's still an issue.
Was it because most of your higher scoring kids are taking it in eighth grade?
Yes. Yeah. So like this year, it would have been 63 kids taking algebra 1 at the in eighth grade. Yeah. So if you look at, if you were to go to seventh grade math for last year, so if you go seventh grade math in 2024, scored a 58, all right? So if the seventh graders all together scored a 58, and then you take the top 60 out and put them in Algebra 1, right? That 60 was included in what was a 58, right? So the question is, they could have, the 37 may sound bad, but they could have actually grown on percentage points. So that takes us to 8th grade math. 8th grade math, well, we were just there. 8th grade reading, 76 for us. The state's at an 80. If you move up to Algebra 1 at the high school, you can see that there's that 38 again, and the state's at a 76. U.S. history, we're at a 93, the state's at a 94. Biology, we're at a 90, the state's at a 91. English 1, we're at a 62, state's at a 66. May not like the 60, but 4 percentage points is as close as we've been in English 1 and AOC level in a long time to the state. Our score is down, but also the state score is down, right? English 2, 77, state's at a 71. So when you go there and you look at state average, you'd have to say comparatively across the district's not a bad year. We have, we have 3 identified areas that we need to show growth, but in generally it's been 8 or 9 that we've identified. So from a standpoint of just simple scores, district-wide, you have to say not bad. Because you're ahead of the state in several areas and you're very close in more. And you reverse the trend in 3rd and 4th grade where you haven't been. All right? A lot of information on this sheet tonight. That's a lot to digest. This is not meant for you to digest it all within 5 minutes, right? This is just a simple. This is just a. We try hard, and to put it. This is a lot of information, right? And when we talk about it over the years, if we've talked about this, it's nice that we have all the information on one page. So if we've talked about something in October, it's still on the page, right? But that leads to a lot of numbers being real small, a lot of color coding to try to group things together. Again, we've been talking about this page since October. It's the same page, just added more information to it. It's a lot of stuff. Don't expect you to do it tonight, but take it home, think about it. We have time to talk about it because the scores are what they are. We can't change them, right? School doesn't start for another 2 months. It's not a rush, but I can tell you the principals and the teachers have already looked at this. They've already talked about it. There's probably already plans of action in place, right? The first step is that there needs to be some kudos given in some certain areas because those are fantastic, right? The second page of this, again, this is something that you'll use, that we'll talk about tonight later on. Again, if you'll remember going into board goals, rather than as a board goal, rather than worrying about every score, all of these scores on the page, we focus on one thing purely, and that's 3rd grade. We talk about 3rd grade, and we set goals for the future years of what we want. And so specifically, we'll talk more about this in executive session when we talk about the evaluation. Okay.
Any questions?
Can you remind me again, I know you said it, but I missed it at the beginning, this goal R1, when was that one set, and when the goal star 2025 was set?
So the goal R1 would have, all of these are set at the beginning of the year.
Right, okay.
Okay, meaning, so we're gonna set a goal, right? So we want to, on the first release test, we know we've taught 35% of the material, but we're given the release test, so we're gonna say we want a 50, right? Then we're going to say when we give the next release to, which is going to be in February timeframe, we've taught 80% of the material. We're going to want a 65,
Sure.
right? Mm-hmm. So if we project a 50 and we get a 55, it doesn't change to goal 2, right? The goals are set before, and then what we get is what we get, right? That goal doesn't change just because maybe the first course were good. So we set those those goals are all set at the beginning of the year.
Okay, including this goal, this final goal.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. So what happened is behind this, so now the meets factor comes into play. So H Campus has an ability group, when I call it a comparison group. And so you're gonna look at comparable growth from 4th grade to 5th grade, from 3rd grade to 4th grade, and all of that's gonna factor in, and how you place with your peer group is gonna control points. Then there's a calculation, here's 3 things, you get the best of the 2, and then at the end of the day, you're gonna come out with a score that's an A, B, C, D, E, F, E, F, but no F. I mean, scope, no E.
Hopefully no F's.
Anyway, wanted to share that with you. If you can remember, earlier in the year, you haven't seen accountability for 2023 or 2024 because of the lawsuit. Earlier this year, about 2 months ago, we released the 2023 accountability. We've shared 2024 accountability because you can see the scores, but you haven't seen A, B, C, D because that hasn't been released. Yeah, because of the lawsuit still. All right. So
Goal R1 and R2 are set by campuses.
they're all set by campus.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things going into. So, like, if a campus wants to be a B, right? They run through the calculation and they say, okay, last year this group scored like this. This year we need to get approaches to this. We need to get meets to that, because if we do that, the calculation is going to get the points to do that. So at the end of the day, everybody's trying to get a B. Yeah. Right? So that when you see those numbers, what do those numbers tell you? If they can follow that goal and get to the end goal, their campus would be a B. Okay, that's the idea, right? And so there's a lot of what if and what if and what if and what's the calculations look like if we do this? What do the subgroups do, right? You got to know all of that, right? It's just not a shot in the dark, right? That's all I have for you, unless you have any specific questions.
All right. Ms. Taylor, financial report?
No, so you can see the financial statements. So we're 92% through the school year. Our revenues, I think, is what's going to drive the deficit budget, just not getting what we expected to get. Our expenditures are kind of on point through all of them, but especially in general fund. So I think the shortage of revenue in property taxes and in the difference in our budget for students and then what we actually had coming. That's all.
Somebody have any questions? Very quiet, very quiet. All right, bond report?
All right. First thing, pass this out for you. Take one, pass it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take one and pass it down. So I'll just start with the overview. This is the sheet that you've seen from day one. Again, at the top has everything. None of that's changed. You can see the numbers in the yellow at the top. What I call the budget slack. The green, the additional projects, those calculations. Those numbers have changed a little bit as we spent. Long story short, you can still see that I'm looking at around $800,000 budget slack of other projects, that money I might need to fill gaps especially as we get close and we find other things that need addressed. You can see that I've got a $6.2 million dollar in the green. I think out of those areas, that's what's going to be left. The 6.2, you add the 2.277, which is the variance between the construction price versus the bond total. Then if you look at, as of, you look at interest, the $3.3 million that's in interest, you can see that all of that totals up to almost 11.8 million. If you add the junior high, what's remaining in the junior high bond, the 226, gives you a total of just a little over 12 million. You can see that everything in the blue you've approved. The WC West Brazos Junior High roofing projects at 4 million, brings that number down to about 8. The Wild Peach Water Well at 495 brings that number to about 7.5. Now below that, the things in blue, those are things that have already been approved. If you look at the column on the right where it says football, softball, baseball, that's on the agenda tonight for you to approve. And then underneath that, the Skyward district-wide build-out for technology and financial services. I've already included those in these numbers. Okay, so if you approve those, just know that's already reflected in this numbers. So long story short, my projection is you're going to have about $7.5 million to do other projects with. All right.
Everything on the left side in blue has already been taken out.
That is correct, including the two things on the right.
It's already been.
Yeah, I've already taken those out. So like when you see to the right FF&E, if you go up into the top, you see that line item FF&E. I've taken the Skyward build out of those numbers up there. And then for the scoreboard, you see, or for Skyward build out, you see technology. If you look up here, you see technology. I've taken that out of that number, and then the scoreboard's out of FF&E. Okay. The things that are in yellow have not been approved or accounted for yet, but could be taken from the yellow numbers above. One of the things we've worked with Justin, we know that the student center flooring cafeteria area, now that we've taken out the credit union banking area, that whole floor hasn't been touched since the original construction in 2000. And so we're going to need to replace that. We do have an estimate. I have that estimate number on there. So we're going to probably need to do that. That would come out of that 811 that I have identified at the top. We're also looking at the student center restrooms, and then what we call the fine arts restrooms that are in between the band hall and the choir room, having those redone as well. We still have the marching band tower. We really don't want to do that until all of our parking lot projects are completed. Other things we've looked at is the agriculture barn, the barrel roof, wild peach roof, and the CHS roof. And so that 7.5 number, the agriculture barn, the barrel roof, the wild peach roof, the CH roof, that's that. You can say that 7.5 number is what you're looking at for those projects, right? Trying to fit those in that. The student center, the fine arts, student center and fine arts restrooms, and the band tower would all be identified as coming out of the yellow 811. Now, on top of that, as Dramala finishes their project, there is still money within their budget that they control, that you approved, that and talking with them, there will be an additional amount of money coming back to us after the completion of that's in their budget that will be unspent. So what that number is going to be like, I don't know, but there will be some. So that kind of gives you where we're at, financial, sitting in a good position. We're on time, we're under budget, we're adding projects to it. We're picking projects that are good for our kids, good for our school, good for our community, and to make our experiences at Columbia High School and in CBISD much better.
So if I heard you right, you're holding on this 7.5 for these here 4.
That's correct.
We should get the roof things in the next couple of weeks. We should know more.
Well, we're thinking in the next month we might have an idea. We got to find out whether they qualify first, right?
That's what I meant, yeah.
Because of the way those are things that are attached, they come through a structure under needs to be appropriate. So.
Looks good.
As far as the project, you can see demolition has started. F building is about 90% down. It's not hauled away, but it's down. And so as soon as they get to the end of F building, they'll come across and take out the portables, and then they'll come across and take out the ag building and the dancing dolls area. The welding building will stay. So it's happening. The band hall renovation is in progress. Looks good. A lot of area. It's huge. Personally, they had to. I took care. Band is receiving all new storage for their instruments, and as well as all new storage for their uniforms. Their uniform storage will now be mobile. So they'll have 5 huge mobile parts that they can store their uniforms on now, rather than having to build and attach to the wall, take it. And so the idea is, the whole project that when we started, the bond was everything's multifunctional, right? Just because we have a room, we don't want to block that room into one thing. So by doing this, and working with Mr. Hackett, it's going to be a space saver for them and allow them to keep the uniforms in a smaller area. Take them out of there. If you can imagine, it's game night or whatever you want to call it, and you want to bring the uniforms out. Not everybody has to fit into a small room anymore. You can wheel them out into the big band hall. So it kind of changes the ball game on how they work, right? If you needed to, you could actually load the carts into the truck and take them to the site if you wanted to. So I think they're bigger than a trailer, but you could, if you had a trailer big enough, you could. So anyway, things are going good. Any specific questions? We're still on time. Most of the furniture has been delivered. It's had an elevator issue, and so they've taken a couple of days off, but I want to say 3 or 4 days they'll be done. And then we have a second wave of furniture coming after July 4th, which would be our ag furniture and our special ed room, special ed behavior and life skills rooms. So those furnitures will be here after the beginning of July. Other than that, we're ready to start. In the next week, we'll be sitting down discussing when Mr. Kenny is going to have registration and what night we're going to do our public opening and let the community come walk through. And so we'll be scheduling those things pretty soon. But August 1's looking like, go ahead, make it happen. So
That's exciting.
It is very exciting.
All right, legislative update.
All right, there's a 1-pager in your yellow folder, just on the left, the line that says 25-26 legislative, 25-26 legislative update. Most of ours in a little bit is going to be talking about finances, but kind of wanted to give you just a 1-pager of something to talk about. I divided it into again, there's a lot of stuff, but I just picked out some of the more ones you might be interested in. The first one is House Bill 2. Again, that's funding. It's the teacher pay, the $4,000 and $8,000 we talked about. Foundation program certification. One of the things that's coming in here, we have a District of Innovation plan. And what's happening is if you're in a foundation program, you have to be certified. So if you're a science teacher in 5th grade science, you have to be certified to teach 5th grade science. If you're teaching biology at the high school, you have to be certified to teach biology. We have, this year, it doesn't go into effect this year, it goes into effect next September. So next September, if we don't have all certified people in the foundation program, then we have to submit a plan to TEA to be completely done by the end of the 29-30 year. So as you can read the tea leaves, by the time we get to 29-30, we have the DOI exceptions are gone all the way across the district. So 4 foundation programs, right? So and that we take that to be math, science, English, and social studies. Another big change Teachers' children are now eligible for pre-K, and they're eligible for pre-K, but they're also eligible to draw funding in pre-K. In the past, we would put a teacher's kid in a pre-K classroom, but they're there and they don't draw funding. There was room, and so we let them go. Now we're able to put them in there and that draw funding. So that's kind of that's a neat thing there. House Bill 4 was the accountability and test reform, and at the end of the day, that got tanked at the end. So hopefully that was a good start for the next legislative session. House Bill 6, if you'll remember, several months ago, I asked you if CBISD could become a member of this Senate bill or House Bill 6 coalition to change some discipline policies, of which we were a part of. So in ISS, as an example, campuses now have the opportunity to put a kid in ISS up to 10 days. In the past legislative session, they changed it to 3 days. We used to have 3-day assignments, 5-day assignments, 7-day assignments, 9-day assignments. It took it away and said you could only give a maximum of 3. It changed the discipline world, meaning they took options away from us. Those are back. You can put them in up to 10. If you want to keep them after 10, you kind of have to do a new hearing. And so evidently, they're also bringing possibility of bringing some citational offenses back that we've lost. And so we're waiting for clarification on those things. House Bill 27, financial literacy has been added to the foundation curriculum for high school graduation. All right? So,
Yay.
yeah,
Been doing it for a while.
been doing it for a while, so
We're
we're
all
good.
ahead of the game, aren't we, Mr. Miller?
Yeah. House Bill 353 was a veto by the governor. This one was upgrading the offense. If somebody was trespassing on school grounds, it was going to, like, if something was a Class C, it was going to make it a Class B. If it was Class B, it was going to make Class A. And so at the end of the day, it passed the House and the Senate, but the governor vetoed it. Interesting. He's only vetoed 2 things so far. House Bill 1586 requires the state to create a blank form for exemptions for vaccines, meaning there's going to be a blank form on the state website that a parent can print off, and all they have to do is sign their name on it and turn it into the school.
Wow. And then we all get measles.
And we all get measles. House Bill 2674 prohibits any additional regulations on homeschools. Yeah, meaning homeschool. Like if somebody signs out to go homeschool right now, again, they come in, they say, we're going homeschool. They send you an email, say, we're going homeschool. The answer is you withdraw their kid and they go, meaning you can't ask them questions, you can't. This is just a clarification that we can't play hard-nosed like we used to. We can't ask for information, we can't, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. There is no regular, you can't, oh, we're going to homeschool, bye. So that's just a clarification. House Bill 3546, they did not, we've talked about in the past of where our board officer elections are in May. There's some talk about trying to force any election into one uniform date in November. Right? They didn't do that, but they gave you the option to, if boards or municipalities that have officer elections not in November, you now have the right to pass a resolution to move them to November if you want, and do a resolution where you could change the terms of the office of your board spots to fit that need. Like maybe somebody has to go an additional 5 months. And you could change the requirements or the terms to fit it. Until it gets back in line.
What would be the benefit of that?
Well, they're trying to save money, right? Because if you have elections in November and you have elections in May, you know, you could be elected 7 spots or elected 1 spot and you pay the same amount because you share with everybody, right? So the idea is, well, it'd be cheaper because you don't have to elect in May. Well, the question is, what do we do in November if you're not having a bond? You really only do it one time. So the idea was, well, if you did it in November, it might be cheaper for you, right? Because everybody's doing it, and it's based on, like, you have to keep this many places open, this much time, you have to staff them. And so the idea was, if you did a calculation, it might actually be cheaper on you in the long
I
run.
think
too.
one year in May, it was like
Yeah.
16,000 it cost us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there weren't a lot.
Right. Meaning, if you're sharing, when you're sharing in November versus sharing in May, it might actually be beneficial to you.
But the disadvantage to November is you have to pick a political party.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's enough politics already.
Yeah, all goes November, there might be people trying to get
Yeah,
bonds passed that be a little tougher to get them passed in November.
yeah, true. So, Senate Bill 2, vouchers. Senate Bill 4, homestead exemption to 140,000. Senate Bill 10, 10 commandments in the classroom. And it has to be in a 16 by 20 frame. I just thought that was odd that they identified the size.
And we've already had someone offer to donate.
Oh, yeah, Linda Kellogg.
She hadn't spoke to us.
Yes, she did.
back-
I'm sure.
It was one of the church. It was one
Oh,
of
was it?
Lake Jackson.
Okay, okay. Oh, yeah, we'll have somebody who wants to do it. Senate Bill 11. The board will have to vote whether to allow a designated time for prayer and reading of religious text at each campus.
Is that, okay, back that up. When we have our moment of silence, is that considered,
That's different.
that's
You
different?
have to decide if it's the same.
Okay, gotcha.
The board is gonna have to vote on whether you're allowing it or not, and then when it is.
Okay.
So if it's the same time, the question is, how long do you get to pray and how long do you get to read a religious text? Right? Is that a moment of silence?
Right, okay.
Senate Bill 12, all staff, school district grievance policies, and the prohibition of diversity, equity, and inclusion of duties. So the reason I put this is that, as an example, if you want to include it, the diversity, equity, inclusion of the inclusion rules applies to everybody on the campus. Meaning, if the custodian does something, the custodian can't say, well, that's not my job. It's identifying that these rules are in place for everybody that's employed in the school district. You have no protection because of whatever class of employee you are. Senate Bill 13, Library Advisory Council. Again, we talked about this a few meetings ago. The right to, let's say, the right to information, the right to how libraries pick their materials. If either 10% of the parents in the district or a total of 50, whichever is lowest, the lowest threshold, request a library advisory council, then the board has to form a library advisory council, and the law also specifies how many and who has to be on the committee. Senate Bill 24 requires the state to redo the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills in grades 4 through 12 social studies to identify communism and discuss the ideologies and the practice of communism. Senate Bill 25. Starting with the 27-28 school year, campuses are required to let students have 30 minutes of daily physical activity or a total of 130 minutes per week in grades pre-K through 8. Clarifying that recess cannot be taken away as punishment. And also that all school districts are required to offer a half a credit of nutrition and wellness at the high school. Didn't say you have to teach it, says you have to offer it. And I do believe we still have health and wellness on the books, don't we?
We have books.
Huh?
We have, and we have nutrition classes.
Right, so we have them on the books, right? Yeah, so there won't be a change. All right, Senate Bill 260 changed the safety allotment to $20 from $10 to $20 per ADA, and then we get $33,540 a campus, which I think our total allotment's like $210,000, somewhere along that this year. Senate Bill 326, in our behavior policies, if some type of behavior was motivated by anti-Semitism, then we have to punish it accordingly. But it requires you to make a judgment. Senate Bill 401, homeschool participation. The rules have changed on this. The rule was in the last legislative session that we had the right to vote whether to allow homeschool students to participate in extracurricular activities in CBISD. The rule has now changed. Homeschool students have the right to participate in our extracurriculars unless our board votes not to allow it.
They try to make us a bad guy every way possible.
Senate Bill 413, this is going to change things a little bit. Board minutes, including individual attendance by name and the vote record by name, have to be posted within 7 days of the meeting. So now, normally what happens is we put out a board brief, and then the minutes come to you in the next meeting. You vote on the minutes, and then we post them. So that's anywhere from 28 to 35 days. So now our minutes are going to be required to post before you approve them at the next meeting.
Oh, my goodness. Jennifer, you better get them right.
And we put things in like if it's a unanimous vote, we say 7-0, unanimous. Or if it's 5-2 or 4-3, we put that. The only time we list a name is if you're not voting. Now we're required to say when it's 4-3, we have to name the 4 and the 3.
So then after we approve the minutes, and if there was
I
a
don't
change,
know if
do you have to
approve them anymore,
Yeah.
quite honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was
Why
gonna
would you,
ask
if we already have them posted, why do you need to approve them?
Okay. And then if you do you have to go back and then re-post them once you
Again,
amend it?
that's what I'm saying. I don't,
Yeah.
we're gonna need some guidance from TASB on
Yeah,
that.
that's gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
Because every meeting you have, you post, you approve minutes from
Right.
the previous meeting.
Right.
No matter what you.
Right.
Okay.
That's my point. We're gonna need some guidance on this, right?
I'm with you on that.
Does that start, when does that start? We don't know, okay.
So that's what I was gonna ask, what's the start?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
When we figure it out, we'll
Yeah,
start.
that's exactly right. And also, the video of the meeting is gonna be required to be posted, right? And that was only if you have this, only if you have that. Now it's gonna be a requirement. Senate Bill 2929, extracurricular spectators. Specifically said that spectators can be ejected from a contest. They do not have to receive a warning. Generally what happens, it's just a clarification of law. It's always said, hey, we're gonna warn you once, we're gonna warn you twice before we throw you out. Now it's no warnings. Go. Anyway, thought you'd find some of those interesting.
Ray and I did not get a warning when we got here.
We're gonna talk to our soccer parents. My point was, the warning has never been a thing. It's always been just a way people operate.
Yeah.
And then people got to say, well, you didn't even warn me. Well, you know, it's just a clarification.
Extra session.
Oh, my gosh.
Now that we're as confused as the legislature,
Yeah.
let's go to the projected budget. More confused.
Okay, we have 3 documents. You each have 3 documents. One's the preliminary totals for the
It's
property tax.
paperclipped. I paperclipped them for you.
And then the actual budget. I want to start with the preliminary values because we have to discuss what our M&O net taxable and INS net taxable numbers are. So I just highlighted them on your page to show that the M&O net taxable is $2.6 billion and our INS is 2.8. This is the starting point of where we take this plus times our tax rate to come up with what we're actually getting for property taxes. And that kind of, starts our budget process here. And then the next is the proposed budget. A couple of things from our last meeting, you'll notice that there are some changes. One of them is on the revenue page. When we actually took the numbers from Moat Casey, when we showed you the Moat Casey pages and it showed current law and proposed, the new proposed, that current law was not the same as the current law budget they gave me. The numbers were different because when they put out those reports just for everybody to go in and look at, any school district, they're taking numbers from TEA, our PEMS numbers. And the last time our PEMS attendance was on there, it was about 2560 or 2580. It was lower. So it wasn't really comparing apples to apples. And so I didn't notice this really until yesterday. And so I called Moat Casey and said, hey, can you update these numbers for us? Because we really would like to see it. What really is the difference between current law and the new law for us and based on our numbers. And so that's what I've changed in the budget. So there's several things like that. And I also added the English teacher back in Function 11 on the operating budget. And so you can see that actually brought up the other change is instructional materials allotment. We had just had $500 in there, $500,000 just as a placeholder. On the Moat Casey run, they told us our instructional allotment is the $174,567. So that was a change as well on both revenue and expenses.
But you whatever you took out on both sides,
On both
right?
sides, yes, it changed.
So it's a
on both.
change, but didn't have an
Right.
effect on the number.
Yeah, it was just pointing out the different changes I made. And so that brought our deficit budget to 1.67. If you also have a green sheet, I just kind of want, it's a little bit bigger than this.
Yeah.
Right here, and this is the last page of the Moat Casey run. So it's showing that the remaining M&O revenues after the required compensation, we should be getting about 1.3 there. So that would leave us with,
Looking for $300,000.
yes, 45,000, yeah. Everything else pretty much stayed the same besides, like I said, just tweaking the revenue budgets that they updated for us based on current law and our true numbers. So really page 1 and 2, those are the ones that you really are comparing. The rest of them is just comparing year over year for revenue and expenditures. Anybody have any questions?
It's just a lot of numbers. Yeah, okay.
And it's still all a guess. Nothing here is true and firm, right? No, I mean, it's a guess right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't know what our teachers'
Yeah.
numbers are gonna be, which will affect what we have left over.
Once again, they're running their projections on a 93%.
On 25, 88, yes, they are.
So, we used to get at the bottom of our report, like, what our actual fund balance is and what the 13% would be, so that we can kind of decide where we, like 13, 8, 15, and 18. Is that what we used to get, Stephen?
It's 12, 15, and 18.
12, 15, and 18. That was helpful to me if you, in the future. If
Do
you
that
could-
for next month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can get it to you.
I just
Our
want us
fund
to watch
balance.
that balance go down, so
Well,
it's real to us.
It is. Yeah, our fund balance right now at the end of our audit was, it was right at 11.2 million. And if we do have, which we will have, a deficit budget at the end of this year, like I said, I don't feel like it'll be because our expenses are way over.
Mhm.
I feel like they're gonna be pretty spot on. It's gonna be because our revenue is lower. We're not gonna have as much revenue as we projected. I've been kind of working on, I hate throwing numbers out, but I mean, I think we'll be around our budget or maybe a little more, just because our expenses are coming in. You can say a little bit under budget.
Mhm.
But, so let's say if it's 1.5 million, then you're gonna be down to about 9.7.
9.7.
And so what,
In your fund balance.
so if we had to hold, what is it, 5 months of revenue?
They say we're required 3. In a CFO meeting I went to, they said if you're June, you really should do 5, just because of how you get your money. And so our expenses on average are about, let's say 2 million. So we would need at least 7, that's about 2.5 million. So you'd need probably at least, well, almost 8 million, just to have 3 months.
So if we take the 40 million, that's what we have to have 3 months of total budget?
If you take, so it would go up every time, so you would do the 40 million divided by 12 times 3, and that's what you would need,
10 million.
and that's for 3 months.
So we're already gonna be below
We're
that.
already gonna be below.
So what, do we just, is that a report? It has to be reported, the
It
auditors.
shows up in the financial, in your first report.
It does affect our bond rates and stuff like that, right? No, it doesn't affect our credit rating. Okay.
Because the question is, I mean, there are districts in this area that I know that didn't have a fund balance at one time, right? I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, can you still buy a car? I mean, you gotta have $45,000 in the bank to buy a car. You know what I mean? It's one of those questions. How's it gonna affect you? It's all about the overall picture, right? They're gonna wanna know, if you don't have a fund balance, but you never go into fund balance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How much is it gonna hurt you, right?
Well,
Yeah.
not unless you need it
Yeah.
and you don't have it. It's
Yeah.
like buying a car.
Well,
You don't
He just
have
asked
it.
me a question, I'm just answering the question.
Yeah, but I mean, there's, you gotta
question
keep
is-
going with the scenario to really, you know.
Question is, what do you want? You have $9 million. If you cut $5 million out of the budget now, rather than have, your percentage is gonna change, right? Like, right now, they're giving us money, so if we have the same amount of money, right now, we have a certain percentage, and because of the total budget's gonna grow, it's gonna be less of a percentage, same number, less of a percentage, right?
Yeah, as long as your expenses are going up,
Yeah.
your requirement's gonna go up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of the questions they ask us in the bond, with when we have to talk to the people in New York, they ask how much fund balance. And we've always had more.
They ask what our board policy is too. Our board policy is that you have a minimum of 12%.
A minimum of 12?
Huh?
A minimum of 12? Well, we've got that, I mean.
Right, and that's what I'm
5
saying,
million is
your
12.
policy and what people ask, that's the question. What you have is a management tool, that's our management tool. That's your board policy. First, the financial regulations of the first report is a state TEA generated report. That's, I mean, what, they could just say, hey, we want you to have 10 months, right? It's not anywhere in your operational guidelines.
So in ours, it says we want 12%.
Right.
Okay. So that puts us at around 5 million. It would be 12%.
Correct. So, I don't know how to explain it other than somebody's put the first report on you
Mhm.
as a tool. Right? So, one might ask the question, why?
One might ask the question, how do you change it? If you
True
don't
that.
like it, how do you
Yeah.
change it?
True that.
You know, because that's,
True that.
if it's not,
I-
if it's not a good tool
and
and it's
from
not
my
helpful and we
underst-
don't have to go
yeah.
by it, then why do we?
From my understanding, there was some legislative actions regarding the first report and how it's done and the questions were asked and what the guidelines are. All right, because you've heard legislators say, we're not giving you money, you got fund balance, use it. How can you say that and require districts to use their fund balance and over half, and 75% of the districts, state of Texas adopted a deficit budget? How can you come back and put regulations on both sides, right?
Mhm.
We gave you less money, but we're requiring you to have more in fund balance. How can you do that, right?
Yeah, because I mean,
So Linda's right. The question is, how do you make somebody understand this, right?
because I don't foresee any way to add money to fund balance
Mhm.
anytime soon.
If that was the case, we wouldn't have a deficit budget much.
Right, exactly.
Well, the deal is, when we started last year, we based a budget off of 2560, right? We were looking at 2560 and 88. We ended up with 2333. We thought 25, we're gonna end with 2633. 2633 is what we're gonna be turning in.
And we're gonna base it next year on
2625. Right? So, hopefully by looking at the cuts, and as we've talked about the cuts by campus, you can tie that to the attendance and expected enrollment. So hopefully the information's out there that we're either gonna have the attendance or you're losing the people. I mean, you have to lose time. I mean, and that's what's happening. And this is the first year that, our campuses have really seen the hits, right?
That's what we were talking about the other day, when we had a little meeting.
Right.
If we lose 50 kids, that's a huge
Right.
number. If vouchers take away 50 kids from us,
That's correct.
that's a huge number for a district our size.
It is.
You know.
And, in the last meeting, we talked about a possibilities list. We've identified some positions for the future. Quite honestly, we could make that number Julie's talking about, that 344, we could make that up real quick.
Yeah.
But those are hard numbers and hard decisions and hard things to do. And right now, we could riff, but we come back in a month from now, and when you riff, you're having to try to say we're in a deficit budget. But if you come back and riff and you put money in fund balance, then you give somebody, right? If much like we talked about, if we riff in February, they have time. That's generally how things are done. When you riff and then tomorrow we have to notify them they don't have a job tomorrow. That's a whole different ballgame. And then you're passing a budget in 2 months that right now we said we're gonna make budget amendments, right? If some change, if we're off a little bit, and all of a sudden we have a little bit more money, then we made a bad decision, right? So it's all about timing when it comes to those things.
So with this 1.6, did we leave, I guess, I apologize, I couldn't make the earlier meeting. Did we leave a bunch of those contingency money in there?
Yes.
Okay.
So all that, in a previous meeting, all those extras we talked about are still in the budget.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, so we could go take those things too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not concerned about, if the numbers are true, and we're looking for 344, I'm not concerned about getting to 344.
Yeah.
We can make it happen tonight. Okay?
Anybody got any more questions?
Well, I need to take you to the second part of it. All right, so I need you to look at the one pager that Julie has. Right, and basically what she's giving you is that last page of the Moken Casey report, right? This one pager right there. Okay. Then I need you to find this. I've updated this for you. I'm updated for. So you'll put this one on your left and this one on your right. We'll go to work. All right. So again, on the left, that's the Moak and Casey report, right? So the first line under SY 25-26, 89th legislative session, right? That's giving you the numbers. So Moak and Casey's saying that as of right now, we're getting 2.805087 more than the current year law says, right? So we're getting 2.8 million more. Now, the next line says total compensation increase requirement of 1.339025. So there's three parts to that. So now go to your right hand, all right? So in the compensation requirement, the first step is teachers, okay? And if you'll notice, this is the teacher scale that you've seen over the last several years, right? You can see that, look at years of experience. In 23-24, we paid $56,000 for step 0. 24-25, $57,000. Now we move to 25-26. But you can see the next column says DOI, counselors, nurses, librarians. Then the next column, you can see for step 0, step 1, and step 2, there's nothing. And then all the way to the right, I've just used the same numbers for those steps, 57, 680, and 58, 350. Then starting on step 3, meaning if a teacher only, next year is on step 3, then you can see they get step 2 plus $4,000. So you can see step 2 last year was 58,350 plus $4,000, and then all the way to the right would be 62,350. So that teacher moving from step 2 to step 3 would get the $4,000 raise. And then the same thing for step 4. They would get step 3, which would be 58,880 plus $4,000 to 62,880. Then, moving from step 5 on, you can see, like step 5 would get the step 4, 59,415, plus the 8,000, and would go from 59,415 to 67,415, and so forth, all the way down the list, okay? Then if you turn the page, this is what you've always seen. Those are the teachers that are left that are over the chart. And we are required to give each of those $8,000 as well, okay? So you have to do that. You don't have a choice. You have to do that. You can do more if you want, but you can't do any less, okay? Then, underneath on the second page, you see the 25-26 staff support allotment. We get a separate allotment based on our ADA, which this year will be $26.33. You get $45 per ADA to give other staff, excluding administrators, a raise. So that number is going to be $118,485. Okay? So you take all the people from the front page that are in the yellow, right? So everything in the yellow on the front page, and then the teachers at 29, 31, and 36 years of experience on the back page, and you have to give them all $4,000 or $8,000. And then for everybody else in the district, excluding administrators, you have to give $118,485 in raises. Okay? Those two numbers match up to what Moak and Casey is telling you is the 1.339025. Moak and Casey's estimating that those two things will cost you 1.339025 of the $2.8 million you're getting. Okay? Then, for all of the raises that you're giving, the money the state gave you does not include money to pay IRS, TRS, or anything else. So when you add that 10.45 in, it's going to cost the district another $140,000 to pay that. When all said and done, Moak and Casey's saying you're going to have 1.326135 left that you can do something with. of which Julie has shown us that we're looking for 1.67, right? And that gives us the $344,000, right? So, just to be clear,
Okay, I got you. So in the previous deal, how do we bounce from 1.1 to 1.6 all of a sudden? I know we're pulling.
we added one teacher,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
So we've added one teacher, so 1.1 so you added, what, $75,000?
Numbers were wrong.
Yeah.
The numbers Mo Casey had for current law
Yeah.
did not match up with what they gave me for our initial revenue projections. And it was based on what they were using for our ADA. And one of the ones they were using 2560 or something like that instead of the 2625. And so there was a discrepancy there in what they said that we were getting. And another one was in our calculation of property tax. And so yesterday, when I started trying to tie back the current budget to their reports, it wasn't matching. So I called and asked him, and he explained the differences. And so he updated the Mo Casey run so that we could actually see with 2626 for the new law and 2626 ADA for the old law. He showed me what the actual differences were. And that's what I presented then on my budget for tonight.
So basically, we're not getting as much money as we thought we were.
This year,
Yes.
the current year, not
Yes.
projecting for next
Yeah.
year, this year. Of which that's been the story every other board meeting, it seems like.
Yep.
Less enrollment,
Deficit goes up.
less ADA, less SHARs, less even SHARs. Now you gotta pay back more SHARs, you know?
Mhm.
Welcome.
If it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
you're right. It doesn't.
With our budget in current law, we have these raises that, not the new raises, but when a teacher goes from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, we don't have.
So, on this chart, right now, there is no money required. So for a teacher, if we hire a teacher at step 0,
Yeah.
or a teacher moves from 0 to 1, or from 1 to 2, there is no money from the state to give them a raises, unless we want to include them in this $118,000 over here.
No, I get that, but like right now, it shows, in 25, 26, if we have a teacher going from a 3-year to a 4-year, that's what, I guess, $500 and something, $535 increase.
It would
It's
have
not
been.
in the budget.
It would have been.
It would have
So
been.
this,
Not
this,
anymore.
yeah, this gets adopted every year. This is not set in stone, it's a hiring schedule.
Right.
We hire people in at this, and we re-adopt it every year.
Yes, but we don't put these into the budget, like how many teachers we think we have? Okay.
Mhm.
So luckily, I'm sure these numbers are already in there. Well,
If a teacher was a 5-year teacher and next year she's gonna be a 6-year teacher, she's still gonna get that same 5-year salary. There was no changes to anyone's salaries.
In her budget, she's moving
Not
forward.
even to include a step
In
up.
her numbers, so she's keeping her numbers simple,
gotcha.
right? So you have to do this.
So I was hoping that they were, because that way,
You can back it out.
well, that way instead of, you're giving a raise that you were already gonna give anyways, so really it would have been like $3,500 that you're
Well, you know,
giving, not
the problem's been,
But,
in the basic allotment,
You're getting more.
you could have, if it had been in the basic allotment like the House wanted, you'd have come through and could have given a 4% raise to everybody. And now, you could have still given a great raise, but you would have, instead of looking for $344,000, you would have had $800,000 in excess
right.
because of how you.
So I don't mean like a percentage raise that we always give.
Yeah.
I'm talking about from a 4-year teacher to a 5-year teacher, 5-year
Right.
teacher to a 6-year teacher.
Right. No,
So how do we figure out in the budget right now?
We don't.
we don't. Every year's no.
Okay. So we just put what we think we're gonna spend in.
Right.
In salaries? We really don't know
Right, so
until,
like, let's just say if we have a 28-year teacher right now and they resign, their money's in the budget.
right,
New money doesn't come in until we hire the new one.
right,
And if we hire a new one at step 0, then you save money then.
Yeah.
So yes, if somebody leaves, that placeholder stays there until we hire somebody new or we take it out.
So you base you're basing this year's budget on the teachers we had last year
Correct.
With the same salary.
With the same salary.
with the same salary.
They
With-
did not get a step up,
With the cuts taken out,
Oh, without a step up,
yes.
without.
without a step up.
Yeah, there's no
They
fluff,
made
yeah.
50,000 this year, they're in the budget for 50,000 next year,
Gotcha.
not 50,850.
Yeah.
Based on the current law,
Based on
current law.
But there's no need to do that because they're gonna get the 8,000.
Well, I was hoping it was added in there, and then we were gonna save a
You
little
would
bit of money.
realize something,
Yes,
yeah.
thank
Instead of
you.
it being,
So,
they were gonna cover some of that
but
money that was already in the
So
budget.
here, we talked a little bit earlier, and we can say that I talked to administrators now. So the ball game has changed. Okay? As you can see, there's no money for nurses, librarians, counselors, behavior coordinators, instructional coaches. There's just, unless whoever you want to decide gets some of this 118, right? Not much at all, right? So what other things can be done? Well, all of this is about PEIMS. PEIMS is becoming drastically important, right? So in the PEIMS world, if this makes sense, let's just use ADA, right? This week, we're submitting all of our attendance information for the whole year. But our whole budget's built on this, right? What we project at the beginning of the year, what the state pays us through the year is a projection, right? We project you're gonna get this. We pay you through the year. And then now in June, you turn your final in. And then they rerun the calculation, and now between now and September, there's gonna be a settle-up. We either paid you too much and we'll hold some out, or we paid you too little and we'll pay you more, right? So that's the way the PEIM system's been built, right? So now, things are moving in a direction where they want PEIMS to be real-time. Meaning, why can't your attendance number be right today? And so you can see the whole thing moving towards TEA having access to your PEIMS and you submitting daily. Meaning, but it's gonna take a while from being able to not worry about your attendance because you're submitting it in June for September. And now we wanna take you to where you pay attention to it. So, as an example on the teachers. The teacher code in the PEIMS role is what's called an 087, okay? So anybody that's not an 087 doesn't get the $4,000 or $8,000, okay? But we have people like instructional aides, instructional coaches as an example. Well, an instructional coach may be working with a third grade math teacher and go into that room and teach 2 periods a day. So they're teaching a class, but they're not coded in PEIMS as an 087, so they're not eligible for the money, right? So all this is leading to ballgame changes. You have to understand the funding buckets. And so in this district, years ago, we would have people that what we called split funding. They do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this. So they get a little bit out of the regular M&O budget, they get a little bit out of title this, and they get a little bit out of special ed, but you have requirements. You have to do maintenance of effort, time and effort, sign this, sign that for all of these, and it's hard to do that. Or you can just say, you're straight funded, you're all this, and you do this, okay? Well, what's gonna require us now is we've done all that, but now we're gonna need to undo it to take advantage of this. Because the idea is, if somebody is instructing kids, they're a teacher. If our instructional coach is in a classroom teaching kids, and the teacher is watching them and helping, and it's a team effort, that's a teacher. But right now, those employees are not turned in as teachers for us. So let's say our instructional coaches become an instructional coach, but they get a change from an 041 to an 087. Well, when they go from an 041 to an 087, they now become eligible for this money, right? Because the state of Texas, to get these numbers, is looking at the 087s we turned in our fall PEIMS last December. So that's when Julie's talking about these numbers, and I'm talking about these numbers on this page that is required to give for teachers, it's a guess based on last year's December, what we turned in. Right? But we've cut some people since then. What if we change some roles? What if you're a district that's hiring 50 new teachers? They didn't show up last December. You're hiring 50 new teachers. The state said that I'm giving you this money, but you're having to pay this money, and you're not going to know how the settle up is until you turn PEIMS in December and you find out in March.
Well, what if you end up giving more, since they're basing it on last year's
Right.
087s,
Yeah.
and you create more 087s, is that what's that gonna do? You gonna get less money than what you got for?
They give you a guideline of what's in 087. In 087, it gives you, if they teach kids half a day, they're in 087.
So when would you get?
If they're certified,
Where's that money gonna come from? It's gonna be short, isn't it?
no.
No? But it's
That's
based on old data, not new data.
their projection. So in September, you're gonna have money to be able to do that, right? Your problem is when you get to May and next August, what it looks like.
Yeah, you're not getting paid till the settle up.
That's what
Right. Because they've done a overlook and said, we think you need this much money, so this is how much we're giving it, and we're dividing it. You hope that's right. So we have to internally make sure that number's right. We want to be on the good side of it, right? But we also have the availability to, do we need to change some roles? Because our instructional coaches work with kids. Okay?
Is there a percentage of hours that an instructional coach has to
Half a
show?
day.
Half a day. Okay.
Right? But our instructor coach, what if our instructional coaches goes to this campus and teaches one period, goes to that campus and teaches one period, go to this? I mean, they don't have to be assigned to the campus. That's what I'm saying. This is one of those things everybody thinks they know what it is. But do you really understand PEIMS? Because at the end of the day, they could be identified as a 1.25 over here, 1.25 over there, 1.25 over here, 1.25 over there, and that equals 5. Now they're an 087 teacher and they qualify for $48,000. Because I'll give you an example. I'm just going to use the name, Holly Hebel. I used her example today. The instructional coach does a great job for us in elementary math. But she has this many years of experience, and you have a teacher with this many years of experience. The teacher is going to get the $8,000 raise and make more money than Holly Hebel next year. And work less days. So, the apple cart's getting upset. Part of this is legislation wanted it to upset the apple cart. Wanted it to. It is. Because now you're forced. Now they forced the deal. You're going on the campus, this person got 8,000 and that person got nothing, but they both work with kids.
So why can't we just code them all the same?
They have to meet the requirement. We can. But we have to do that. And now everybody else has to relearn what we've done for 10 years and make it right. And if we do that, and we have to change some roles, meaning this instructional coach might have been working over here teaching a bunch of lessons, and this instructional coach are just sitting in meetings with lesson and planning with teachers. Guess what? You plan with teachers, you don't get any money. You work with kids, you get money. But we got to know up front, and we've kind of given the instructional coaches to the campus and let them use them how they want to. Well, we're going to have to go back where it's district directed and say, you get this if you do that. But we have to, if we're going to pay them that, they have to do that. We don't get a chance to change it. They have to change the ball game a little bit. So,
Is there like a deadline that you have to assign them in order to turn in those numbers to have it affect?
our fall PEIMS submission, which is in December.
Oh.
See? But it's all about how we submit it in PEIMS, right? As an example, teachers. Quite honestly, in PEIMS, we don't have all of our teachers' years of experience right? Because you know what? It's not an issue. Never has been an issue. The only time it's an issue is if we have it right locally, so we pay them right. right? Or when they leave us and go to another district and they want their service record, then we create the service record and we send it with them, and the new district puts them on the scale right. Or when they retire and they send it to TRS. The rest of the time, it doesn't really matter. Now it does, because they said, we're gonna pull this information, and I can tell you right now, our PIMS information isn't right. So when they say, oh, you have 159 of those, no, we don't, we have 189 of them, because I had it pulled. So, you know, what if you were an instructional aide for 5 years and then and you're in the second year of a teacher? Well, how many years of experience you'd have? It doesn't say teaching years of experience, it says years of experience, right? So like a pay scale is only a pay scale. We have a teacher that comes in, it's their first year to teach. What if they've been an instructional aide for 10 years? Do we have to put them on step 0? We normally do, no questions asked, but we don't have to. That's our decision of where we put them. The TRS years they paid in TRS, they've still paid in the TRS.
True, yeah.
Right? These are all games, but most people say, oh, you can't do that. They have to start at 0. No, they don't. They start when we assign them if they have credible experiences, because TRS is TRS. When you retire, you have to have 30 years of credible service, not 30 years of credible service as a teacher.
You know, next year it's gonna say, has to be how many years of a certified teacher.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Especially with the DOI and stuff, that's gonna go
My
away.
point is, we have 2 months. So look at the new rules.
Yeah.
You're asking, where's the 344 coming with? We might be able to find half of it. We just gotta have time to do it, and we gotta retrain ourselves, and therefore, we gotta know what the rules of the game are, right? First time we seen any of the legislation rules are last Thursday, right? As an example, Jennifer's over special ed funds, right? Right now, our regular budget has to fund special ed because she doesn't have enough money to cover everything that they do. That scenario I just talked about with her coordinators and stuff, what if we're able to do something like that, recreate the ball game? Now, as an example, a teacher gets paid for 187, right? Her coordinators get paid for, say, 195, right? So it's the 187 daily rate to the 195. So let's just say that's $3,000. If we take those people, put them back in the 187 teacher role, right? She saves the $3,000 plus whatever stipend she pays, right? They go on the 187. So she's still paying for the 187 teacher. Now that person gets either a $4,000 or $8,000 raise. The state pays us that. So the person's making the same money, right? Now, she's saved anywhere between $6,000 to $10,000 an employee. You can add that, and if she now can fully fund all of her people and doesn't have to pull money from the regular budget has a savings. All right? Now, the problem is, you've got to show all this on the expenditure side and the revenue budget side to Julie for it to show up in the budget. All right? Meaning we can't say, oh, it'll work out. Right? It's not been uncommon to where we wait till this amount of time, we've just paid somebody. We pay them, 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 and at the end of the year, we figure out where the funding comes from and we make it right. Right? We can't do that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah, it happens. Not saying it's you, but it happens. Right. Right? So, but it hasn't been practiced in recent history, but it used to be common practice. I'm just saying there are some things that we're going to have to do different. Maybe we can take advantage of some of this and actually help ourselves a little bit. Right? Or it's going to upset the apple cart because you're going to have teachers making more than assistant principals. You're going to have teachers making almost what principals make. You're going to upset the apple cart, right? And I'm just telling you, you know, wait till September and paychecks go out in September.
So have you heard, are they, so with this increase in, with the teachers, are they gonna Are they already gonna fund this for the following year too?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, because we were talking about that.
Right.
And-
The answer is, they say eight, in the past, when they said $8,000, they mean 4,000 year one, 4,000 year two. This year, it's all up front. And next year, there is no additional money next year. They are funding the same money. You get 8,000 up front this year, you get the same money the next year. There is no money for raises in the second year of the biennium.
So if you wanted to raise them from whatever this looks like, it's on you next year.
But they gotta bring that money to the table again.
Correct. But it's all gonna be on your PIMS, right?
Okay.
So the way they're gonna do it, it's all on you. If you turn them in as an 087, they're gonna be an 087. You gotta turn them in. You gotta say, like I say, split funded. If somebody was split funded, they were a 0.5 this and a 0.5 that. We're gonna have to have 087s, 0.5 and above. Right?
But like you said, at grade 3, 4, 5, may not be any money there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, surely they won't take that away, because how would you go tell your teacher, hey, you've got $8,000 the last 2
Well,
years, but
So here's what you're gonna, let's play this ballgame. The instructional, we're gonna go through and we're gonna give instructional aides 0.5% raise, 0.5% raise, or $500, okay? They're gonna be in the teacher's classroom that just got an $8,000 raise. How do you think that relationship's gonna be when the teacher says, hey, I'm gonna sit over here, would you go work with those kids? What do you think that's gonna do to morale on the campus? I'm just saying, I hope everybody understands what's just happened. This is not, hey, yay. It's gonna be yay for some.
teachers,
Yeah, if you're one of them.
if you want to, yeah.
But you need to understand the people around you, what's fixing to happen there, right?
Principals, are y'all on board with great communication here? That's gonna be on y'all to spread that,
All that goodwill.
all that love. I don't know what else to say, because it's gonna be up and down in your world.
So great.
So with that, I'm just putting this in here. So here's what's gonna happen, right? Teachers, nurses, librarians, counselors, right? Their schedule has always been built off the teacher scale, right? You can see at the bottom, 195, 202, 210, 210. There's no money included in them for raises. If we were to still link them to the new teacher, there's no way we could afford to pay them, right? And so we're gonna have to have a scale just for them, right? Now, their salaries are already built off of the one we had this last year. And so that's why I put that column in. It says 25, 26 DOI counselors, nurses, librarians. Because the easy thing would be to do is just keep that the same. Their salary structure doesn't have to change. They make the same money. Right? But, it's hard to argue that the people in the classroom deserve the money, right? That's hard to argue that. But the problem now is, I'm used to working with 2 aides, right? And
Now you get to work with $8,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get to have it.
yeah.
Well, it just, I'm not saying teachers do not deserve every dollar they get.
I agree with
right?
100%.
But it's just irritating that the way the state put this out, there's no way, I can't imagine any districts, that's not in the same situation we're in on this.
Let's just say you're a local district building new schools. How'd you like to have this kind of, Greg, be going crazy right now? Because the numbers don't match. That's what I'm saying.
I ain't never seen them match twice.
And it's true. Anyway, we'll keep providing information. We'll keep doing it. Just keep in mind our timeline, right? We're looking to get it right by August. We're slowly going to get there. We're going to work every day to try to find everything we can do to get it right. No shortcuts, no easy ways.
Find some money in there for raises.
Well, that's the idea, right? That's the idea.
That's gonna be tough. It's gonna, I mean, it's a lot. It's a big difference still. I mean, so, I mean, you know, it doesn't be exact numbers, but how many other employees are there? Other than teachers that fall into, say,
So you can say
everything
right
else?
now, 430 employees, 199 teachers.
Okay, so 200.
That really,
How many employees? 400, what?
let's say 430, 199 teachers. That's a guess.
Right.
It's close, not off much.
So, do you know, like, let's just say, I mean, I know it's not, just out of, for curiosity, say if we gave a 2% raise to everybody else, do you have any idea what that number is? It's a lot, isn't it? No, it's not.
So last year, a 2% raise for everybody else other than teachers, $200,000.
And we got 118 already?
Something like that, yeah.
And minus 340.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you go
yeah, you
forget
just put,
that.
find it, what's the number?
Well,
Yeah,
because
what's the number?
The 118 that is what they're giving us, right?
Yeah.
That we have to
Left
use,
over from
that we
So
have to use.
one of the
for
things
raises.
that we're gonna do is we're gonna run those calculations and we'll get with the salary spreadsheet. Once we start looking, again, I don't wanna do something, change it and have to redo it again. We're gonna develop a process, change everybody to where we need them to be, then recalculate it, let's go through. And by the time we get there, you're gonna know what this is.
I wanna make sure that teachers know
Yeah.
we're doing every single thing we can.
Yeah.
Not teachers, everybody other than the teachers.
Right.
Know that we're trying to do everything we can to give everybody something.
Right.
Have we beat that dead horse
Well, I
enough?
think we have.
Okay, well, let's move to the next one. All right, our action items. We have a motion, we have an item to consider approval in addition of Skyward Finance implementation to Columbia High School bond project. So we've talked about this before. Julie brought it to us, and I think twice we've talked about it. So if we want to continue to discuss it, I would need a motion that we consider approving the addition of Skyward Finance implementation to Columbia High School bond project.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Ray. All right. So now is there any discussion about it? Do you need some more information from Julie?
So the motion is just to keep pursuing towards it? Is that what we're talking?
Is to approve it.
I think you asked for us to look at a 5-year contract,
Yes.
and we did have that.
Should be attached in there, is it?
I-
We can discuss it now. We just need a motion and a second in order to discuss it
Correct.
further. By Robert's Rules of Order. Yeah, it's in there. Do you want Julie to go back over it and talk to us about it? Or explain anything on the,
They did do a 5-year contract that they did lock in our yearly, what it cost yearly for 3 years without an increase. And then the final 2 years, it increased like 4%. The only thing that's not included in the 5-year contract is the hosting. And it's around $5,500 a year. And that would be a yearly expense we would still have in the budget. It would, once we approve it and sign a contract, they'll start like in July of starting to build it. And then from like October till by February, we'll be training on it. They'll do some training here, some will be online. And then it would go live April 1st of next year.
So the total build out of is $255,826.
That's a one-time cost.
That's a one-time cost for us that covers the 5 years. Yes,
And that's coming out of the bond.
correct.
And it also is gonna end up a savings as well.
It will.
Yeah.
I mean, if we ran what we have with e-finance right now, e-finance is 65,000 a year this year, and it would go up every year. So this comes out to be about 55,000 a year. So we will be saving in that 5 years, you'll be saving up at least 10,000 a year. And then we'll just need, it runs about 22,000 a year plus the 5,000 hosting, which is a significant savings over e-finance.
There won't be no penalty from getting away from e-finance.
No, we'll sign our contract in September to renew that for a year.
E-finance.
We have to, because this won't go online until next April.
Right.
It'll take them almost a year. And so we'll have that cost. We'll still be, and it's in our budgeted
You got
numbers right
that,
now.
you got all that put in the budget.
Yes, that's in the budget. And then I think we'll have one more year on Wendy's side of it. We'll have to pay for a year, but then Skyward is not gonna charge us for the HR side for the first year. They just didn't charge us because they knew, Wendy's contract goes from July to July. Mine's in September. So they won't do the HR side and the finance side at the same time. And so they like us to get the finance side up and running, and then by October of next year, they'll have the HR side up and running side of it. So that's all in there. It's, I think it's a good deal myself. I think it's a better program. It has more controls in place, and I think it'll be good. Kind of start with a clean slate and get all the old things out.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Ray and a second by Jackie. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, next we're going to consider the approval and addition of Columbia High School scoreboards to the high school bond project.
So in there, we've talked about this several times. If there's something you'd like to do, here is a price for Daktronics for replacement of the scoreboard at Griggs Field, the replacement of the scoreboard at Renfro Field, and the replacement of the scoreboard at the softball field.
I'd like to make a motion so that we can discuss it if you have questions.
I'll make a motion that we approve the scoreboards for Columbia High School out of the Columbia High School bond project.
Okay, James. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Galloway about the money or any comments you'd like to
I
make?
have comments. That's just me from coming from the side of the table that I've been on before. I know it's coming out of the bond. I understand that we need the improvement. But if we're doing all this cut and all this holdback on everybody else, I have a real hard time throwing a scoreboard up. I'm sorry. That's just me, old school, and being the teacher side of the
It's
table.
not the same money, Janet.
I know. Just to make me feel better about this vote.
It's not the same money.
It's not,
Well,
I mean, it's not the
it's
same money.
coming out of the bond money,
It's
which we
coming out,
don't
it's
have to.
because we've worked hard and we've saved money
Right.
and we've cut this and we've cut that. We're at a long list of ads. Like I said, we got seven.
We don't spend it. We gotta get back to the
Yeah, we
state.
Right.
don't spend it.
I get that.
I mean,
And that time's
we
coming
save
up.
money to do things like this.
let me ask a question. Like, if we approve it now, when will the work start? Like,
Daktronics will order the scoreboard. I mean, we're talking about
when will we
installation
see it going up?
August.
So
All
we're,
three at one time.
so we're hoping to have it ready for the fall.
For football, first football game.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Anybody, give any commitment for, sponsorship?
I haven't sent it out yet because you haven't approved it.
So we want to approve it before we get any kind of.
You have to.
So remind us about the sponsorship thing. I
So
think
what we-
that'll be helpful too.
So the idea is the sponsorship for the Griggsville School Board and the 40-second clocks that go on the field. The idea is to do sponsorships, guarantee of $5,000 a year, 5 years, $2,000 a year. You pay 10 grand up front. You can pay it out over 5 years. But the idea is to do that for the first 5 years and then do it for the second 5 years. Once you've done that, you've paid for the school board.
And that money can be used,
It goes into the budget.
That goes back in.
It will go back in,
Yeah, right.
into the original fund.
The
So
general
it's
fund is not-
basically sort of a loan so that we can get it
That's, yeah.
going with money that we have that, like, we don't spend it, has to go back. And I do agree with you, it doesn't look, but that's part of our job is to help explain things. And I think our teachers and our administrators, when they hear feedback like that, I think they try to clarify as well. So if we just know that's what we need to do, and we need to contact people that we know are concerned and say, hey, I want to explain this before you get all upset. I'm learning and I want you to learn too. This is not what you think it is. And explain that, we have the money. And it's from the bond that they approved. And we feel it's a good investment.
And in the initial bond, this was in there, see, I don't know.
But this is
This is
extra.
add-on because we have it,
Because we
have
frugal.
extra money.
Yeah, we've been frugal and we've been able to save bond money even.
And we $3.3 million in interest.
Yeah, and we also got interest off of what we've drawn out of the bond.
And we
So-
can't use that money to make payments on the bond. We have to
We
spend
have to
it,
use it,
or we
have to
lose it.
spend it.
We have to spend it or lose it. We can't put it back into the bonds.
But it is allowed to, the law does allow for us to use this money on the school board. It's not, it's an improvement and we
Right.
can do it. So everybody, speak up to the folks that ask questions and let's,
You know I'm gonna ask.
yeah, that's good. That's good.
So you been on the phone with anybody that's got
A
showing
couple.
any interest?
I've been on the phone with a couple and saying it's a possibility. But we'll, if you approve it and then tomorrow or this week, we'll get a little flyer put together and get it out to the players that need to see it. And hope that they'll do something. Mhm. But the idea is for, Griggsville would have, that offer would be only for Griggsville. For softball and baseball, the idea was that we'd be selling 4 sponsorships on each board and they would be the same. If that makes sense.
Was
If you do it, you get advertisement on both school boards. The same 4 for the first 5 years and then a new 4 for the next 5 years. Right?
Anybody have any other questions or comments before we vote? And Jana, vote the way you feel like you need to vote?
I'm gonna, yeah, I have to.
Okay. All right, all in favor, we have a motion by Becky and a second by James to consider approval in addition of Columbia High School school boards to the Columbia High School bond project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we have 1 opposition. All right. Now we'll go to the action items, the consent agenda. Does anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda? Got lots of minutes in there to be approved and the board policy update, our property held in trust, vendors for academic curriculum, assessment testing materials, and for professional development services. Anybody want anything?
Let's see.
Greg, you want something to point?
I'm getting there.
Okay. There's more on the back. More vendor approval, athletic equipment, software, and performance. me help you find it?
I'm good.
Oh, you good? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say that. Okay, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Jackie?
Second.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All righty, we're gonna go into adjourn to closed session pursuant to Texas Governmental Code, the Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074, to consider the employment of professional